Hey guys, it's the FPL Tips team and welcome back to another Fantasy Premier League video. With us, we have our co-host today, Akhilesh, who's going to roll out this video for you guys, and we'll be discussing midfielders across all categories: 6.5 million midfielders, 8 plus midfielders, premium midfielders, budget midfielders, everything. And we're going to take a deep dive look into all categories and tell you guys what we think are the best midfielders to buy and purchase, or maybe shuffle around with, and some other midfielders we should ignore. Anyways, welcome Akhilesh. This is our first video together. How are you?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I mean, it's a pleasure to work with FPL Tips, and I'm really glad and excited ahead of the new season. And yeah, let's directly dive into it with the midfielders. Let's first look at the 8 million plus midfielders, where we have our like more popular ones. First, let's look at Salah. Salah is, I think, the best midfielder out of this list, and there is like no doubt about it. He creates chances. He takes a lot of shots in the box. His XG is very high through the roof, and historically he's just been performing season of the season. But this is the first season where Salah's not in too many drafts at the beginning of the season. And Haaland's price at 14 million, which I initially actually thought would put certain people off Haaland, but it's put much more people off Salah. Everyone's just going Haaland, nailed captain, 82 plus percent owned, while Salah is around 25-30%.
Yeah.
The other reason is because we have a bunch of other midfielders who are very nicely priced in the 8 to 9 million bracket, and gives room to have multiple of these players who also had like a lot of points from last season, especially Rashford, Saka, who were really in it with respect to giving FPL points. But Bruno is also someone who is worth considering, because you look at the screen, he has created 119 chances. That's a lot. He has I mean, he's been very unlucky, at least towards the end of the last season, because the amount of big chances he was creating, there was nobody to put it into the goal. And only Rashford was there in United's attack, who was consistent enough. If United get their things together and at the beginning of the season sign a new striker, with Højlund now currently linked with them, then Bruno could be a really valuable asset with being only 8.5. And Rashford, obviously, I think is the better United asset, but it doesn't do too much bad if you can have both of them in your team. Rashford,
So, just to add something here as well, in perspective
yeah.
to Bruno, he's playing much more higher up the pitch in comparison to last season with Mount into the team. Even in the preseason game versus Arsenal, he was much more closer to the goal. Something, and Bruno was putting much more effort. It could be now
Hmm.
that he's fatigue free, he's taking a break. Obviously, they've coming back after a while, but you can see in his game that he's much more energetic and much more higher up the pitch. And you mentioned about Rashford and Bruno. I think the community is also split between the two of them, because Bruno does have that penalty factor with him, which
And
Rashford does
also
not.
0.5 million people.
Yeah, he's cheaper as well. He's got the penalty, so those are two things that you can consider. But
Hmm.
personally, I'm still leaning towards Rashford because I know he's a nailed-on guy, game week in and out. He performs. He does perform when required, and also he's sort of a streaky player. Where if Rashford does start scoring, if I see signs of him scoring in the preseason, I know I can jump on him and he'll continue the streak for a while.
Yeah, there was a time last year, right, when he was almost matching Haaland with his output in FPL, and became a proper captaincy shout also. But let's talk a little bit more about Salah, and looking at his fixtures in the first 5-6 game weeks, why he at 12.5 million, still being the best midfielder, might not be one of the best options to go with. So if you could pull up the fixtures, here we see that Man City in their first 6 game weeks have Burnley away, Sheffield United away, Fulham home, West Ham away, and Nottingham Forest home. And your captain is Haaland for without a doubt in each of these game weeks. So that leaves Salah only with Bournemouth at home, and where Man City don't have a bad fixture. Arsenal have Crystal Palace away, which is not too bad as well. And there can be alternative captaincy shouts. So is it really worth having Salah for just captaining him for 1 week in the first 6 game weeks. And the other point is, with if you don't have Salah, the trade-off you of not having Salah is that you can have about 5 to 6 players in that 7 to 8, 9 million price bracket, which includes defenders like Trent and the midfielders who we have on the list. And also, there are strikers who are in the same price bracket as well. So, yeah, so that's surely something which is very important to look at the beginning of the season.
So
Um,
I have a different perspective on this because I have Salah in my draft, and for people who are
right.
watching till now have managed to understand that I have a cough. And sorry for me back in the back coughing in the background. You guys will have to bear that in this video. But my only pro side to Salah is obviously I get a differential captain in game week 2, which is something important in my opinion. Because of the lack of double game weeks this season, there is not much option to go differential. So there will be slight chances where you can take this chance, and game week 2 looks like an opportunity to me. Second reason why I
Let me
have
just
Salah.
throw two things
Yeah,
that are like not really logical, but
yeah.
one
I know
thing
what's
is
coming up. I know what's coming up.
Salah never scores in game week 2. And the second thing is last year when Liverpool played Bournemouth at home, the score was 9-0 and Salah didn't have a goal or assist. So these are two things that could haunt people when they are going to put the armband to Salah on in game week 1, game week 2. But of course, if he does perform in game week 1, it might make every non-Salah owner like little worried. But yeah, what do you think? I mean, it's
So
totally not logical, but there is that resistance towards putting the
no, no.
armband onto Salah when you
So
look at that.
my only logic to going Salah right now, there are two things that are into consideration. Klopp has changed his tactics, which has allowed Salah to do well recently, and also into get into positions where he wants to get into, and he does well. Second reason is game week 2. Let's say I captain him, barring the result, what it comes out to be, whether he outscores Haaland or not. Game week 3, I have the opportunity of downgrading him to any in-form midfielder. So let's say there's a De Bruyne maybe in form, or Son who's kicks off. So when you look at Spurs fixtures after game week 2, they play Bournemouth, Burnley, Sheffield, and Arsenal. Let's say Son
Hmm.
looks great in the first two fixtures. I want Son. I think it's an easy switch off from Salah to Son, and maybe if I want Trent, I can invest the remaining money into Trent, or maybe another striker. Maybe I can upgrade my 4.5 million striker to a 6.5 or a 7 million striker. Having Salah in that position allows me to do that change. Wherein if you're restricted to a midfield which has two 9 million midfielders and two 6.5 million midfielders, it's going to be tougher for you guys to upgrade. That's the thought behind
Absolutely.
having Salah into my team, because it not only allows me a differential captain but also a route to escape out of Salah immediately and then get on to players who are performing well. Because this is a trend when people, like in start of the season, when they find form, you can see that continuing for a couple of game weeks, and that's probably the time I want to jump on a midfielder.
But the other reason I can throw over here, other point, is the Arsenal attackers. There are drafts which have three Arsenal attackers. Three Arsenal attackers plus Rashford will automatically price you out of Salah. So, what is your thought on three Arsenal attackers? Especially, I mean, I think Saka is more of a popular pick, while Martinelli and Jesus are much more differential. Martinelli, in fact, is below 20% owned, if I'm not wrong. What do you think about these midfield, these Arsenal attacking assets? Odegaard is also there. Havertz is there. So, with respect to Arsenal and United having those attackers with the fixtures being so great, I mean, Salah, that again puts myself personally off Salah in those first few game weeks.
So this is obviously the second way to look at having not having Salah, and that's also part of a conversation in the 8 million midfielder category, where we have Saka, Martinelli. We've obviously skipped Odegaard, who could be on the list as well. Obviously, he's eighth or ninth in our priority, so we've not added him. But having so many options from Arsenal does really make you think that okay, the fixture run is great and you can have options. I talk about it in terms of how preseason is going. Saka looks involved, but he's still slightly wider than usual. Martinelli looks like he's cutting in, so it could be a great. And there's still a lot of preseason to go, and they could really get their guns out and going. And you would want three Arsenal attackers instead of a two attacker, one defender, triple up. So in that scenario, maybe you do ditch Salah, and then maybe you think that okay, I can captain Jesus in game week 2 against Crystal Palace away. This is not a bad game to captain someone as well. There is
Hmm.
merit to this, but again, I still prefer Salah captaincy versus Bournemouth because I know Bournemouth are defensively not that great. Crystal Palace has shown defensively some resolute in general in the end of last season, whereas Bournemouth isn't that great. And the current Bournemouth manager is also very interested in playing attacking football, so it could be an open
Yeah,
up game for Salah and Liverpool in general. So I'm
yeah,
very
that's a
interested.
valid point.
Yeah, and
I'd like to slightly shift the view towards the Arsenal midfielders with Saka and Martinelli. I mean, you did mention that Saka has been much more wide in the preseason. His underlying numbers, when compared to Martinelli, at least towards the end of the last season, was I think much more towards Martinelli, and Martinelli did perform quite a lot. And there was like three phases of Martinelli last season. One, the early phase where Jesus was playing. Martinelli was a like very popular shout template pick at the beginning. He was on only 6 million last season,
yeah,
and he was just in the box, scoring goals, scoring plenty of goals, getting a lot of chances. And then there was that phase where Martinelli first had a small drought of goals when Enketia was playing. And then when they signed Trossard, Martinelli became a mini. And then once Jesus was back, Enketia went out of form. They started Saka, Trossard, Martinelli, Saka, Jesus, Martinelli. It seems that when Martinelli and Jesus are playing, maybe when Havertz plays as that false number 9 also, Martinelli is the guy to go. He even if he plays like 70 minutes, comes off, he is gonna get plenty of chances. With Saka playing wide, that could also mean that Saka is also a creator for Martinelli. Odegaard
yeah.
is a creator for Martinelli. The false number 9 or like the striker is gonna create a lot of space for Martinelli. So I think he, for me personally, is someone I'm really excited about, looking forward to this season. That's where I am with Arsenal, because I think Martinelli is probably the best shout from Arsenal. Minutes
And
might be a risk, but early on, I think he'll get a lot of minutes.
yes, and I think minutes wise, he's pretty much nailed. I don't think it's Trossard is a risk for him to starting. I think 70 or 75, he'll pretty much manage every game. And also, when you closely look at the comparison between Saka and Martinelli, there's not a huge difference in numbers. Let's say even penalty area touches, Martinelli is almost up there. For chances created, he's there. For XA and XG also, he has good volume of that as well. So given the comparison, and Martinelli now also behaves as a differential in your team. So let's say if you can always go Saka plus Martinelli, but if I had to go, let's say three attackers from Arsenal, Saka, Martinelli, Jesus would be my top three. When it comes down to two Arsenal attackers, I think I would still go safe with Saka because he's about 55-60% odd now. He's about 50% owned, so I'll go Saka there. And between Martin and Jesus, I'm preferring Jesus because that's a different slot and that opens up a midfielder place for me. But again, Martinelli hands down is still cutting inside and a very essential key to Arsenal's attack.
Yes, I mean, I feel like Martinelli is gonna be in the end of a lot of those goals, and I am not completely against the idea of Saka having Martinelli instead of Saka also. It gives you that 0.5 million and maybe takes away penalties of Saka, but I think Martinelli is gonna get a lot of goals.
Yeah, I think Martinelli
Um,
should be getting
yeah.
involved a lot, which leaves
What
us
do you
out
think
with
about KDB and Son?
which leaves us out to the last two options. Kevin De Bruyne is still he's back on the bench. He did not get any minutes, so I think there will he and Pep's mentioned something that he was not looking at Bayern and Atletico games as like preseason games to play Kevin De Bruyne. So there's still a lot of time between when we can see him starting a game and where he can appear as a sub on. So for now, it's an avoid. Kevin De Bruyne is a complete avoid for me, despite all the stats.
Same.
Yeah, just don't look at him for now. There's
Son
Sun.
is the more interesting pick.
Yeah, but again, so the first two games, so Sun is the problem. I think when you look at Spurs, Brentford, and Manchester United, I feel like okay, those are games where Brentford is not a counter-attacking game, so Brentford will be tough to crack. Although when you look at Spurs preseason, they've been attacking a lot, like they've been committing numbers ahead. So
Yeah,
game quality
under
more,
Ange, they are like a real
yeah,
attacking team.
and
They have
and Madison is
chances
playing
being
behind
created
Sun.
by Madison and Kane also.
And you know
No.
that the manager also prefers sort of a 5-3-2 system where he can play Son and Kane up top, and that can be slightly seen in some of the preseason games. There's still a while to go when the Premier League starts, but yeah. And Manchester
And
United could be a
historically,
good.
under an attacking team, of Spurs when there is Son and Kane up top. Kane drops deep, obviously plays those
Yeah,
passes to Son. There's Porro who creates chances. There's Madison who creates chances. Son could be exciting once we are sure that
and
he's gonna be confident in scoring goals.
yeah, so that is why I think for the first two games, it's key to watch him out and not jump on him earlier. Same with Madison. I think a lot of people were considering Madison. We'll also discuss him in the next section. But again, I think it's a wait and watch more than jump on him right now and start the season with him, because there are other options. You can go double up Arsenal, double up United if you want. Maybe I would even punt on Havertz as an option if he's starting the Community Shield final. I can jump on
Hmm.
Havertz as a punt because I know that Arsenal are more attacking. It's a long term bet. Then Son at the start. I would really wait and watch in that area of the game.
Right.
Okay, so let's just sum it up for all viewers. Despite all the hate for Salah, I think both of us have combined our rankings, and Salah is still top. I don't know what's hypocrisy here, but I am pretty happy with Salah first on the list. And Akhilesh also agreed that in totality, brutally on stats, and the fact that if you compare his stats and numbers and performance to everyone on that list, he's first. He's hands down first. Pricing, and then the
Absolutely.
option of going to other midfielders is an option that you can really figure out and look at. But Salah hands down on stats is first. We have
But the
Rashford.
three,
Yeah,
two, three, four,
go ahead.
five is, I think, very close.
Yeah, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for me, Rashford is pretty much slightly above all when he's in form.
Probably,
If he's
yeah.
not on form, then okay, then it's same. Saka Martinelli very inswitchable. I think Martinelli third or Saka fourth would not, like, it won't be a problem. It is very close. Bruno fifth on my list. But this is something. This list is before the United versus Arsenal game. So after the game, I think, and as more preseason games come out and United play more games, I think Bruno can actually climb up that list because he's playing that good right now. So keep an eye on Bruno because I think he can easily jump to number 2 or 3 in this list. De Bruyne is sixth, and once we know that he'll be injured and out, he's seventh. Son is sixth. But again, the last two numbers don't matter much because I think we're picking 4 out of these or 3 out of these. So you can look at the top 5 names and then you can pick out your pick. Yep, we'll move out to the next segment, and we have the 7 to 8 million midfielders. Again, this is a category which is very nuanced and tricky to pick players from this category because there are a lot of options and we don't know how many minutes each player has. Certain players have minutes nailed onto them, but the stats are again varying and not that great. So, would you like to talk us out through this?
I mean, yeah, I agree with you. There are a few picks who are nailed on for minutes, but you don't know what they are, like how they will be. There are a few unknowns over here, and the few who are unknown for the minutes, and you're not sure how much they will start. Let me first come to the more exciting picks who are unknown for minutes, which is Foden and Diaz. Foden, I mean, fairly, they could be starting because they are one of the best players in their respective teams. Foden, let's come with him first. Uh, Two things: Mahrez and Gundogan. Gundogan has already left. Mahrez is on the verge of leaving, and that could give way for Foden because every year it seems like Foden looks like top three players for Man City. He looks like the player who should be playing for Man City week in week out, and with if he's fit for like his fitness also Guardiola has like given a lot of praise on it, and if he does remain fit and keeps going, I think Guardiola should be starting him for a lot of games because he can play on the wing, he can play as the Gundogan replacement, as that player who arrives late in the box, because I personally feel that's a much more dangerous position for him. He can be much more explosive if he plays that position, because there was a point last season when he was an option. He scored that hat trick against United. The position you see is towards the left of Haaland. He either comes late and scores the goals, or he goes there and plays it to Haaland, gives him assists. So those are the real, like it's a real dangerous position for him. But obviously, there's Alvarez, there's Kovacic, there's Kevin De Bruyne, who could play as those midfielders, and it's very interesting to see because uh, Foden is the natural goal scorer. Maybe Alvarez also, but Foden, I feel, is the most natural fit as the person arriving late in the box, playing there, while I feel De Bruyne and Alvarez are going to fight for the right side midfield spot, and Foden and Kovacic are going to fight for the left side midfield part. But Foden can also play in the wing. That's also there then. Bernardo Silva is surely there, and they might be signing another winger also. But if Foden doesn't play in the midfield, he can always play in the wing. So I feel like Foden, there is that risk which we've always associated with a Man City midfielder not named De Bruyne in the last few years. But I think he could end up being a template pick um, as soon as game week 3 or 4 if he's going to start and gets the number of goals or assists we expect from him. And the other
And
pick is Diaz.
And also,
Yeah.
just to add about Foden, he's probably more nailed to minutes this season because of his versatility than the earlier season, and that is why we're looking at him as an option. A lot of people were looking to start with him, but again, he's a high risk at the moment for minutes. So very keen to watch Community Shield final. I think that is when Pep will put out his first 11, and that is when we'll get an idea, because a lot of people are thinking that maybe Alvarez starts on the right, Bernardo does play there, and there's a lot of Alvarez bandwagon as well. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think Foden could be starting right, and we've seen him play on the right as well. Earlier, I think a couple of seasons ago, he played against Liverpool where they thrashed Liverpool.
Yeah,
That is a game I remember distinctly. He was playing on the right, and he does well on the right. So, and Pep really doesn't think much about whether he's left-footed, right-footed. Pep knows that in the inside space on the left-hand side, he can do great, and he's done that. He's used him like that for the last season, but he can play him on the right as well, because he's good on the right as well, and he can attract players, which is what sometimes Pep needs against low block teams.
Let's move on to Diaz. I think I think any of these four Liverpool attackers are gonna be an option at some point. I mean, even as soon as game week 2, because if you know that Nunez is surely starting or Diaz is surely starting, they perform in game week 1, they look good. I mean, all of them have looked good so far in the preseason, the 2 games Liverpool have played, and surely one of them becomes an option. Diaz is one of the top persons in my watch list because he, I think, makes Liverpool look much better. He does all the hard work. He brings the ball in, cuts in, shoots, and gets into a lot of attacking positions, and also makes the play happen. So Liverpool did miss Mane a lot last season, but they also missed Diaz because of that real potential of taking on the defenders on the left hand side. Because that combination of Robertson and Mane was very effective for Liverpool in their success, and that didn't happen too much last season. There was not much attack coming from that side. Jota and Nunez are more direct players. They are more in the box. Try to get more attacking positions within the box. They are not as good as Diaz when it comes to dribbling from the wing. And he has his own assist potential, goal potential, and could be a great option at just 7.5 if we see that he's going to start a bunch of games. And a lot of Liverpool forum do think that Diaz is the one who's going to keep starting. But it's like very interesting to look because the other three attackers are not any less as well. They are also great players who've had a flying start to the preseason. So any of Diaz, Jota, Nunez, and Gakpo could start, but
My only worry, because you're so high on Liverpool assets, is the fact that Klopp stresses too much about sports science, and he knows the value of rotating players, and that becomes a problem. Like, I know for sure, like, maybe we can see Jota and Diaz on the left, Gakpo and Nunes in the center, and those two positions get rotating. You can obviously interchange all of them, but again, if Klopp like feels okay, there's fatigue, he needs players to be rested. There's international break after game week 4, after game week 8, and we can see a lot of rotation. That is what is keeping me off these players, and that's going to be a worry throughout the season. So when you look at your midfield spot, you need someone who's going to start in and out. You don't want to use your substitutes because you'll not be investing a lot of in them. And the Liverpool assets give me that worry every game week, whether I don't know he'll start or not. Once we can see a pattern, maybe 4 or 5 game weeks is maybe, if he's being benched 1 out of 6 game weeks, then I can take the punt, because then that's fine. There's value out there.
But the other thing is also right. Like if you do go with any of these players, there are plenty of options in that same price bracket. So you don't need to go out of the way to remove that player also. So because if you feel there's like that one of these players is injured, for example, for at least even like 2-3 weeks, that means it makes the other players much more nailed. and you know that for like a series of 3-4 weeks or 4-5 weeks, you can count on one of these attackers, and that could really be profiting because they are explosive players. Goes without saying. So it does. I think
But
any of
that
these guys
that's my
can become
point. That
good.
when you know that there's nailed on minutes for one of them, I think that is when I'll jump on them and not earlier on. I think I'll
Hmm.
wait and see if he's nailed or not, and then only and then jump on him.
Agree with you. But what would I say is also that their prices are very appealing. That there is gonna
Yeah,
be times
there's
this
gonna be
season that
yeah.
you're gonna
If
get them.
if I see a streak of form on Diaz, if he's scoring like 2 consecutive games, he scores, he'll be on my watch list. He'll be the top on my watch list. But again, because of the price point, he's so affordable. You can downgrade any 9 million asset there, or you can shuffle around between your 7 million or 6.5 as well. Because gaining 1.5 out like 1 or 0.5 million in your team right now is not that tough. By
Hmm.
gaining, I mean shuffling around with players and getting 1 million. But yeah, so he's gonna be an option throughout the season, but not at the start for me.
Right. Then let's move on to the other midfield options. I
Just
think
because we mentioned
Bowen
Foden and we discussed a bit of the City midfielders, Grealish
midfielders.
and we don't have Bernardo over here, but Grealish and Bernardo are two players that other City midfielders that are options. For me personally, Grealish is never an option because he's the one who holds the width on the flank, and however assist he got at the end of last season. Again, he had a patch of 4 5 games where he scored and got an assist, but again he blanked out after that. He was not involved. But because his role is very restricted to the fact that you have to carry that wing, you have to hold the midfielder, especially with Pep putting another defender into the midfield and tucking 2 players inside. Grealish is now pushed out even more wide. And personally, he might have assist threat. He's a great player. He's good at dribbling. But again, I don't see him as an FPL option, at least at the start of the season.
Yeah, same with you. I completely agree with you on that. Um, yeah, I don't think Grealish is going to be an option, especially with Foden also
Which,
being
yeah,
there
especially
as
with
a playmaker.
Foden in the same
And
price bracket, I don't think it's an option anymore.
yeah,
Okay, we were jumping on Sterling and Bowen. We actually let's first discuss Madison because we touched up in the Sun part as well. Great start to the preseason. He's been doing good. He's been running a lot. You can see him playing in the number 10 hole. He will be pivotal to the attack. So when there is a Spurs good run of fixture, which is about game week 3 4, again when we look at the game week 1 to 6
yeah.
ticket, that's
After game week
Bournemouth,
two,
Burnley, Sheffield.
Bournemouth, Burnley, Sheffield. Yeah,
Yeah, that's when you can look at Madison. There are a lot of people starting for Madison. What do you think? Should people start with Madison, or is another player a better option? Because there is minutes guarantee with Madison. We know for sure that he'll start all games at Spurs.
I think Spurs are still a bit of an unknown because you're not sure how they're going to like start the season. They have a couple of difficult fixtures. So if you bring in Madison at in game week one and you're not satisfied, that means there are going to be like a huge bunch of managers removing at Madison if they don't go well in that Brentford away and United fixture. So in that case, you might lose value on him as well. And I mean, he's in a new team, might take some time. He's in an exciting team, no doubt about that. There is an attacking potential for Spurs, but new manager. I mean, I don't think preseason is enough to just judge them. Might have to look at a few game weeks, but at 7.5, he comes as real at a really nice price, and with players like Son, Kane around him, he could yeah, he could become a real option. But there's one more thing which we did miss a little bit with Son, which I'm bringing with Madison, is if Kane leaves
Leave
Tottenham,
Spurs. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
then what is Madison and Son like? How do they become?
But then
What is
it becomes so there are two parts to it where I think is possible. One, obviously these players become very pivotal. Everything is going through them, which could be the case right now as well. They'll be highly involved, and that is an obvious fact because they're the best players at Spurs. But my only issue with Spurs is, and I will not touch Spurs assets after that, is the fact that Kane is so essential to everything at Spurs right now. Once he's gone, they will need a lot of time to redevelop things, take time to adjust. I know Son without Kane, when Kane was injured for about 6 months in that season where he scored a hat trick against Villa, then he
that is a
continued his
different
form.
time out.
Yeah, Son is great. Like Son without Kane is good. He's great stats, but it's something wait and watch for me personally because it is not that easy. I don't think Richarlison fills that boot easily. Richarlison would not be able to do that easily, as good as Kane, and they will need time. So basically, if Kane leaves, I'll wait and watch. just put my hands down. Maybe Son becomes a more preferred player to me because I know that historically he's done well without Kane, but it's
Mhm.
going to be high weight and watch for me.
Yes.
Okay, so we
Uh,
have Sterling and
Sterling and
Bowen
Bowen.
left. A player from my team, I start to discuss him. He played right on in the Brighton game as well. He started there. A lot of people were thinking he'll start on the left, but he could continue playing on the right. Once Madueke is back, he could shift on the left as well. Irrespectively, he's one nailed-on player for Chelsea. I don't think it doesn't matter where he will be starting. He looks sharp, and he was cutting inside as well. So he's a player that you can consider when Chelsea starts scoring because Pochettino will be using him well. He has got the pace and he will start regular games. But should you buy him in game week 1? No, because I think that at same price, Nkunku is a better option because I know he's nailed on. He played half of the game as a striker against Brighton and then he got subbed off. But Pochettino has mentioned that he will play Jackson and Nkunku together, but they could be playing up top 2 or maybe Nkunku in the hole in number 10. Irrespectively, at that price point, a forward who's starting all games, I know is nailed on and in the more dangerous position is something more preferred than Sterling at the moment.
Who do you think takes penalties?
Oh, that's a great question because we don't know who's going to take penalties. We have even the friendlies we've not arranged a penalty shootout as far as I know. So, but my inclination is maybe Sterling because he's taken penalties at City once. He's a horrible penalty taker, so that
Even I
could
was.
really shift around.
He's
James
taken a
is in
lot
the
of
list.
bad penalties,
Yeah,
but
and
he has taken a few penalties.
Nkunku is also in the list because he
Yeah.
can also take penalties. So I think it's
Yeah,
between the
it'll be
three of
really
them.
interesting to see because anyone who takes penalties at Chelsea could become an option as soon as like we know
Yeah,
that.
and also because we've got so many pacey players, we know that there are fast players in this team. And when you have
Both
so many
Man,
fast,
yeah,
yeah, when you have fast players
you
and
could get a lot
players
of
who are agile,
penalties.
you get random odd penalties in the box, and that is very essential. And
Hmm.
not something to be happy about, but that's a thing in the team. And when you have that advantage, people try to exploit that as well.
Yeah. Let's
Lastly,
come
we
to the
have
last
Bowen,
option.
who's
Yeah,
got
I
the
feel
best stats, who's got the best stats in like the entire table, but still not the
really
best option
underperformed
in.
last season.
Yeah, he's not done well, and he's not like top of a ticker or even in when you look at the community, not a lot of people are looking at Bowen. What do you
But
think?
he is having a very good preseason so far. Some of his finishes have been really good also, I felt. And I think he's gonna be their main player now that Declan has left. He's gonna be their best player, main player, I feel, for West Ham. And I think West Ham did play well towards the end of the season. Yeah, there are two things with Bowen. One is, one as I mentioned, is he is their best player. He's on penalties. He underperformed last season. The season before that, he was like a template player. So, which kind of Bowen would we see this season? I think he is a quality player. I mean, he's not nowhere close to being an option right now. But there could be again times where you might have to consider Bowen with respect to fixtures or maybe double game week sometime. But the other thing is without Rice, what are West Ham? They haven't signed a proper replacement yet, and so how do you think West Ham will be? Will Bowen still be the like the player? I mean, will he be a player as effective as he was a couple of seasons ago? Is one to look at.
So I would just like to bring up the fixtures as well because you mentioned that West Ham play Bournemouth. They start with Bournemouth away. They play Chelsea home, Brighton away, Luton away, Man City, Liverpool. So
No
apart
go
from two
in
games,
these first 6 games.
Bournemouth and Luton, I don't think there are great fixtures to start and begin with. And again, West Ham without Rice, it's also because it's going to be a different setup how they play. I don't think attacking wise there's a huge difference. Defensively, Rice does provide more stability. Going through the center will be a problem. So will they be able to fit an adequate midfielder into the team? How will the dynamics and the formation change is the question I have. And secondly, they also have European leagues this season. They have qualified for that as well. So there's going to be a lot of rotation going ahead. So again, with no good fixtures and no sense of direction at the moment for West Ham, I don't know how will they set up. That's a big problem. How will things unfold for them? That is why I'm really off Bowen, and you can see that in our rankings as well. But yeah, to sum it up, this is how we've ranked all of our players. We've given slightly more uh, importance to stats and like for certain players especially, and certain buys as well. So we have Foden first because we think that he will start the season. I think he can play two positions for a Man City team who have the best fixtures in the first 6-8 games. We have second, we have Diaz because both of us, I think, I'll take your opinion, Akhilesh, on this as well. Do you think Diaz starts? I think he starts the
I think
season.
it starts.
Yeah, and I have the similar opinion. I think he starts. He's a gamble. Yes, I would also like to advise you guys. He's a pure gamble if you're taking him into your team. But again, out of these people, he's second best. Then we have Sterling because we know he'll start. He could be on bench and minutes assured. Fourth, we have Madison. There's not much difference between Sterling and Madison. It's only because the fact that Sterling we know is more need is more of an FPL proven asset than Madison. In Spurs at Chelsea also Sterling was not bad last season. He was taking good places and positions, so he could continue doing well. Madison not far behind. Bowen is fifth only on his stats. Grealish is sixth only because of my bias, and I don't want Grealish to be in my team. And I would not recommend because it's not because of how bad or good a player he is. It's because of how Pep uses him, and his role is not to get inside the box or score a goal. Okay.
Let's move to the 6.5
Yep.
and below
Okay.
midfielders, where there are also interesting options. We did speak about Salah and no Salah before, and these players could actually be key in deciding that because if you do go for Salah, you need one or two of these players. And that brings us to the players who are like real options in 6.5
Uh,
and below. Yeah.
yeah, I had like I'll just we just slightly over time, so we'll keep it concise for this sixth segment. So I have certain pointers that I've been observing through the preseason. Let's start with those. Firstly, Enciso not great at the moment. I don't see him as a great option. He's not playing good. First of all, Brighton don't look like their best team. They were a different gravy last season, but this season they look slightly different. I don't know what's the issue. Maybe it's the formation or the set of players they're using in the preseason, but they're not up to the mark. Secondly,
Hmm.
Pedro is a great asset who can take Enciso's position anytime. He's too good with the ball, and even against Chelsea, he was one of the best players Brighton had. So, there's always going to be a worry will Enciso start or not. So, I don't think he's as great an option people are thinking him to be. At 5 million, yes, you get an option, playing option, but maybe you can look at somewhere else where you can find more value and at least guaranteed minutes. Enciso doesn't look like the player I thought he would turn out to be at the moment. At the
I
moment,
don't think
obviously,
he
there's
is
more games to
guaranteed
go.
for minutes as well.
No, he's not. I don't think so. He is.
Nowhere close to. Yeah, because there is Mitoma, there is March, who are great options, and that number 10 could be played by Gross, could be played by Enciso or Mitoma when Enciso plays, and there's Lalana who's back fit as well, who did play in the preseason,
Yeah.
and I don't think he's gonna be anywhere close to being a bench warmer. So Deserby does see him important to the team still. He did last season, and I mean, given he is, given he's gonna play a few games, that means he's gonna play as number 10 also. So there is that rotation risk which is there with NC. So he's still very young. There's that Buono Notte also who's there in the team. So there are a few different players who Deserby could use, and we're not sure actually who will be. I mean, Enciso did look good towards the end of the last season, but not sure who's going to be their main McAllister alternative this season.
And yeah, I agree. So at the start of season, you can see him starting. Maybe he starts 2-3 games, but again, if they're not clicking, Enciso will be the first person to be dropped out in my team. And
Yeah.
so if someone is picking Enciso in case if he still wants to go, if you want to go for Enciso, just have that in mind that maybe he's not your nailed option. So he could be your fourth midfielder, and or maybe as a fifth midfielder he's totally fine. I have zero problem because he will play minutes. But as a fourth midfielder, you will need a backup for him.
Yeah,
And
I agree with you
we
completely.
let's just touch upon their teammates as well. March and Mitoma. March with hands down one of the best stats in this table. Mitoma is also great, especially for XG, and he's been looking really good. He's looking lively, but again, X lively is a factor, but X output is still missing out there for Mitoma a bit. Again, March was okay. I feel like Pedro was better in that position, and Pedro will be a constant threat to March starting. Although Deserby, he said previously as well, and I feel and I think we've seen it earlier that March is a clear favorite for Deserby. He doesn't really like to rotate March a lot. So I don't know how Pedro will fit in, but again, Pedro is a genuine threat to him as well. What do you
Yeah,
think? What have
but
you made
also
note of?
Pedro could play any of those positions in
Yeah,
front four, I feel. And March and Mitoma were very fundamental to Brighton's success to being in the Europa League last season. There was a real time when they were just playing gorgeous football, and March was central to that. He was creating chance after chance after chance, and Mitoma also looks like great. I mean, he's a proper dribbler. He's very good. He's gonna create chances. Last season, towards the end, he was also a little unlucky. Should have scored a little more goals. I think he'll be their main player this season, and they will really want everything to happen through Mitoma because he's just purely very talented. I think it's a coin toss between them personally because I think March is being little looked under over here. I know there is a minutes concern, but I don't think that's gonna be at the start with their fixtures at the beginning. I think it's fairly even between the two of them. What do you think? And where do you
I
think
mean,
Mbumo and Eze come in this?
given the fact of given purely stats of last season, I think Mitoma is better because he's got genuinely more goal threat than March in my personal opinion. So I like certain players, but this season again, when you look at preseason, Mitoma is still better. March is there, but he's not reached up to the market. So purely based on what we've seen last season and the preseason till now, I think Mitoma is a better pick for me, and that is why
Okay.
March is not something into consideration. And now that you've mentioned Mbuemo, the Fulham versus Brentford game happened yesterday night. Brentford played a 4-2-3-1 formation where Wissa was up top, Buemo was on the
Hmm.
right. And I think this will be the trend against the smaller teams where Brentford will play a 4-2-3-1, and against the harder teams, they'll go stronger oppositions, they'll play a 5-3-2 sort of a formation. Again, puts Buemo on the right. He's not that great. He's good on the right, but is he the main target man at the right? I don't think so. And should you consider him or Visa? I think Visa, between the two, Visa stands out for me because he's more central. I think, and in between the two, we don't know who will be on pens. But it's if Buemo is on pens, then again it swings everything towards him. Despite him being on the right, if he's on penalties, he'll be essential.
Hmm. Then I think similar to Mbumo, someone who had a great end to last season is Ebere Eze, who's
Yeah,
also had a
great
flying
preseason as
start to the
well.
season. Yeah, I mean, he's a very exciting player. He had that bad injury 2 seasons back, else he should have been already one of the best exciting young players and might have left Crystal Palace by now as well. But I think Zaha has left now, and Olise is also linked with a few clubs. That means Eze is their main man. What do you think about him?
Eze is a great person. Like in singularity, when you look at Eze as a player, he's great. When you look at his stats and preseason, he's doing great. You mentioned that he's very key to Crystal Palace. Agreed. Agreed. Last season, you saw him. He's involved in everything. And the fact that he scores low XG goals also slightly improves him as an FPL option because he's one greedy to score from various spots in the game, and he's not shy of taking a shot outside the box. He's not a player who will think twice before taking a shot, and I really like such players in FPL because you know that is the quality of the player as well. He can score those goals, not just taking random shots. The only
And
thing that
penalties.
Yeah, the only thing about Crystal Palace is that the fixtures are not that great. They're okay. Then in between, when you look at the fixtures, they have Sheffield to start with, Arsenal, Brentford, Wolves, Villa, and Fulham. So Wolves is again an unknown quantity. I don't know how they will set up. To be honest, will they be very attacking or defensive? Sheffield is an easy fixture again. Um, apart from these two, the first six don't look very bright for Crystal.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you. They have a tricky fixtures, and I'm not sure with the team how they set up with one
Yeah,
of their main players going out. And yeah, it would be interesting to see their incomings, outgoings. I feel like Crystal Palace is always a very difficult team to predict at the start of the season.
yeah,
Sometimes
because
you see like
there's huge
they don't
rotations
have
that happen.
anything,
Yeah.
they look great, and then sometimes you see that they look great, they don't get off to a great start. So it's again wait and watch, but really exciting player. I mean, I really like watching Eze play.
Okay, and the last two players, you can take us through them. They had a preseason game as well. Newcastle versus Aston Villa. Almiron
Al,
and Buendia.
Al, Almiron played on the wing for Newcastle, and they played, I think, five at the for like 3-4-3 ish, with Almiron on the right wing. I mean, didn't do too much for Newcastle, and I don't think he's an option at the beginning, at least, because Newcastle have the tricky fixture list at the beginning, and also I'm not sure if he's nailed on. He did have a great run last season, but there is Barnes now coming. There is Gordon who's there at the club. Murphy can play at the right, and you're not really sure who's gonna be playing over there. I mean, I'm only
I
sure that
pers- personally, I
yeah,
think he's
Isak
nailed.
was.
I don't
Okay.
think being nailed is a problem for Almiron. I think maybe there's sub outs for him, but form is an issue to me personally. I don't think his form is great. Again, he was a very patchy
But
player
I
last
think he
season
can
as
just
well.
take form and just like get that patch last season anytime.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's always, I mean, if he's nailed, he can be an option at any time, but
But again,
surely not at the
last
beginning.
season, a lot of people, I don't know, they did not really realize this. Last season, Almiron had one of the best preseasons of his life and amongst all players. And that is what he continued into the season. So when
Yeah,
you look in at the bigger picture, you know that he needs form to continue scoring goals. At the moment, you don't see that form.
yeah,
And that
that's a
is why I
great
don't
point.
like him.
Hmm.
And
And
then there's
Buendia has
Bundia.
scored a brace for Aston Villa. I think Aston Villa ended up with a great season, and I think he'll be fairly nailed this season. But I think there are better options in the same price bracket, so I'd wait and watch again with Buendia. And but he might become an option before we know, because Aston Villa also have a few really good fixtures at the beginning. Someone to look at.
So when you look at the fixtures, they're good. They have Everton, like they start with Newcastle, then Everton, Burnley, Liverpool, Crystal, Chelsea. My only problem is that they have qualifying Conference Cup qualifying between before Burnley and before Liverpool, or before Everton and Liverpool. So that's where certain rotation can, if not rotation, maybe fatigue can come in. But Bundia, when you look at him in solidarity, this could be the season where he blasts off. So he should be at top of your list. Personally, if you are okay taking the punt, I wouldn't mind going Buendia because I know that he's very key to that Aston Villa attack on the right as well. So, out of the list we have, if I had to punt on someone, obviously apart from the Brighton assets who are slightly more better in comparison to the others, I think Buendia is an option that I'm considering genuinely in my team as a punt.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, I'd agree with you. But also there's that new player who they've signed who's also
yeah,
6.5. Diaby
Diaby,
from
I'm not sure
Liverpool.
how they pronounce him, and I would
Yeah,
not
I
like to
think
butcher his
Diaby.
name. I think, but yes, uh,
Yeah, but
that's
and
about.
I think he's an exciting player from that team. From Leverkusen, he's been
He's what,
scoring some
20
really good goals.
goals,
He's
20 odd
electric.
assists, something like that.
He's electric, and
Musa
he
Diaby,
could be an option as well at some point.
Musa Diaby.
Musa
Yeah,
Diaby.
he's a 6.5 million asset who's an option, and also someone you should watch out for.
Yeah.
Okay, so to rank them, we've combined the ranking somewhat like this. We first Mitoma, obviously because of his stats and performance. Buomo is second because of his performance and somewhat stats, and maybe because he's on penalties. We're not sure, but he could be on penalties. We've marched third, as a fourth, Almiron fifth. Now, because of the preseason, we would like to put Bundia fifth and Almiron seventh, and Ciso remains sixth. Just because of the preseason, before preseason, we do not know
Hmm.
how Bundia would have fared out, and that is why we put him seventh.
Yes.
Okay, and that's about it with terms of our rankings. We come to an end to this video. Any last words, Akhilesh?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Salah and no Salah is still going to go right until game week one, and it'll be interesting to see his ownership at game week one. This could be his lowest ownership since he's been in the game when it comes to game week one. And yeah, I think there are a bunch of really good midfielders who could be going into the season.
I'm still firmly in the Salah camp. Hopefully, let's see how I fare in the next video,
Yeah.
where we'll talk about our drafts and we'll cover the forwards. Let us know if you have any specific questions regarding midfielders or any other positions in the comment section down below. And if you are watching this video for the first time, please do consider subscribing to our channel. Okay,
Thank you.
with that, we'll wrap it up. This is the FPL Tips team signing off. Cheers.
Thank you.